We're going to use now our knowledge about transformation to apply it to specific graphs, and we're going to look at the parabola. So from now on, when we speak about parabolas and we refer to y equals x squared, this is how the graph will look like. The first thing that we're going to look at is the dilation. So A is our dilation factor, and that's the first thing that we're going to check out. Dilation factor, what's happening is A can, the first thing is if A is negative, remember negative, the whole thing is reflected in the x-axis, so this is if A is negative. If A is doubled, it means that every x value, so in the original one, every x value is twice that, which means the dilation factor 2 is actually going to stretch it in the y direction, but it's not going to, 0 needs to stay 0. So that is when A is 2 or A is greater than 0. So A is, let's say 2. When A is a half, it's going to be actually compressed because every one of these x values will be just half of what it is now. So your graph will look like that, and that is when A equals, let's say, a half or a fraction. And this one, of course, is when A equals 1. So dilation factor, whatever dilation it is in the x direction, in the y direction, sorry. So it's either going to be stretched out, or it's going to compressed, or it's going to be reflected. So the only reflection is in the x-axis. Our next factor is, or not our next factor, is translation, and this is going to be very hard. Some textbooks explain it as when h is positive, it moves in the x direction. However, then we look at the formula, and I actually changed the formula. The formula then should be x minus, and then they put h in the bracket, square, which makes it very confusing because they say if h is positive, then positive times negative is negative, which means it's going to go in a negative direction. If h is negative, then it's negative times negative, which is positive. So it's always confusing to me to do that. And all I remember then is it moves in the opposite direction of whatever this is. Okay, so if it's x minus h, so this is when h is 0, because there's no movement, so h equals 0. If h is 2, okay, don't get confused now, that's different than what your textbook says. If h is positive, so I'm going to rewrite it as y equals x minus h, x, let's say minus 2 squared. What will happen then is it will move in the opposite direction, which means it will move in the positive direction. So this will be, everything as it is, will move into the positive direction. So it will move, this will move there, and everything will move in that direction. So there's a movement of 2 units in that direction. This will be y equals x minus 2 squared. If it is in a positive direction, so let's say then it moves in this direction, everything moves in this direction, and let's say that is for the function y equals x plus 3 squared. So it will move in the negative direction, opposite direction of plus 3. So it will move in this direction 3 units. So we will say there's a translation. So h is the translation, or in the x direction, either negative or positive. Our last one is translation in the y-axis, moving it up and down. So whatever x squared is, you're just going to add values, which means it's going to move it up and down. So if k is positive, it will go up. The same, it will look exactly the same shape. Okay, so this is if k is, let's say, 2, then everything will move up 2 units. this will be k equals 0 because there was no change. And if it's negative, everything moves down. So let's say that is when k equals -2. So that's the three basic transformations that you need to know for a parabola. What we're going to do is now we're going to combine all of this. And we're going to say y equals, it can be a factor a of x minus h square plus k. Okay, and what you have to remember now is, remember whatever this h is going to move it in a certain direction. And the k value is going to move it up and down. So if this point was 0, 0, on our new graph, this is now what's going to happen. And I think this is why the textbook changes the x and the y. My new graph will look like this. And this point here will be my turning point, which was 1, 1. What happens now? My new turning point will be whatever k is. So that k is going to be my new y value. So that will be k. And depends on which method you follow, this will be h. But in my explanation, it should be minus h. It means if h is now, if h is 3, it means that if h is 3, this is going to be -3, it's going to move in the opposite direction. So if I say it's negative, it means it's whatever this value is what comes there. Hope that makes sense. So h will be in which direction it's moving. If this is -3, it means it will go in the opposite direction, which means that will be +3. So with this value here, negative or positive, depends on what is this value over there.